My wife, Clara, was faking amnesia. She'd orchestrated the entire charade, stemming from a minor car accident, all to fulfill her young lover's ambition of becoming a vice president at our company. Her grand plan was to use her supposed memory loss as a weapon to force me out of my own position. I learned all of this by chance. As I walked past her office, I overheard her boyfriend, Leo, whispering to her, his voice laced with a thin veneer of concern. "Aren't you worried," he asked, "that your husband is going to stop talking to you for good?" Clara's response was a wave of pure indifference. "I'm just letting you have your fun for 7 days," she said, her tone dismissive. "After that, I'll just tell him my memory has returned. It's not like he can hold a grudge against a sick person, can he?" I stopped in my tracks, the words hitting me like a physical blow. A cold clarity washed over me, but I didn't burst in and expose her deception. I simply paused, absorbed the truth, and then continued on my way. The following day, at a full meeting of our senior staff, Clara executed the next phase of her plan. She slammed her hand down on the polished mahogany of the conference table, the sound cracking through the quiet room. She pointed a trembling, theatrical finger at Leo and then at me, declaring that Leo was her true husband and that I was an imposter. She then ordered me to leave the company immediately and hand over all projects currently under my management. Every eye in the room swiveled towards me. They all knew our history, the years we had poured into this business together. They were waiting for me to laugh it off, to gently handle my supposedly confused wife, and put an end to the bizarre spectacle. But I offered no resistance. I didn't argue or try to reason with her. I simply met her gaze, held it for a moment, and then quietly signed the resignation papers that were hastily pushed in front of me. She had no idea what she had just done. A critical project, the one that could make or break our year, had a submission deadline just 7 days away. More importantly, the client, a notoriously particular firm, would only accept submissions from me and recognized me as the sole key contact. In 1 week, her entire scheme would implode. She would be facing catastrophic financial penalties and, quite possibly, criminal charges. As I gathered my personal effects from the table and turned to leave, Leo stepped in front of me, blocking my path. He puffed out his chest, trying to project an authority he didn't possess. "You need to delete all of your contacts," he demanded, his voice a low growl. "They are company resources now." Having run this company for years, I knew for a fact that no such rule existed. It was a petty personal attack, designed to isolate and cripple me. I turned my head to look at Clara, who was observing the scene with a detached coolness. "Is this your idea too?" I asked softly. She stared at me, her expression a blank mask, before giving a slight, cold nod. If I deleted those contacts, it would be a final, irreversible step. There would be no path back from that. She was banking on my reluctance to sever those ties completely, using that presumed attachment to push me harder. It wasn't entirely surprising. In the 7 years we had been married, we never had children. The company had become our child, a shared creation that we had nurtured from a mere idea into a thriving enterprise. And if I were being honest with myself, I loved it more than she ever did. Just last week, during a strategy meeting, she had proposed making Leo the head of the technology department. He was woefully underqualified, a fact everyone knew, but the older, more established members of the team were inclined to go along with it just to maintain peace with her. I, however, had stood my ground and vetoed the proposal outright. Clara knew I wouldn't allow her to compromise the integrity of our company for her whims, so to finally get her way, she concocted this elaborate amnesia drama to force my hand. One of my senior colleagues, a man I'd worked with for years, saw the escalating tension and tried to intervene. "Mark, don't get angry," he said, placing a placating hand on my arm. "Clara isn't herself right now. As her husband, you have to be the bigger person. Be more understanding and forgiving." Bolstered by this misguided support, Clara seized the opportunity to double down. "My husband runs this company," she announced to the room, gesturing towards Leo. "If anyone here goes against him, they are going against me." The other co-workers around the table smiled. Some even chuckled, nudging me playfully. They saw it as a joke, a testament to how deeply Clara must love me, even when her mind was supposedly muddled. I found no humor in the situation. The reality was the complete opposite of their perception. Clara and I had always managed to maintain a civil, even pleasant facade, but whenever a real conflict arose, a moment that required a united front, she never had my back. She always expected me to be the one to concede, to smooth things over. We argued about it frequently in the privacy of our home. "We're family," she would always say. "No matter how bad things get between us, we can always patch it up at home. It's different with other people. If you upset them, you can't always fix it." It took me until that very moment to finally understand the flawed logic of her words. I realized that when you truly love someone, your first, unthinking instinct is to protect them, not to coolly weigh the pros and cons of offering your support. Suddenly, Leo kicked a nearby chair, sending it clattering across the floor. "You're pathetic, Mark," he shouted, his face contorted with rage. "Clara's husband is me. Keep this up and I'll make you shut up for good." He swore at me, framing me as the aggressor, the one causing trouble. All the while, Clara just stood beside him, her silence a tacit endorsement of his behavior. I let out a slow breath. "All right, fine," I said, my voice calm. "I'll delete them." I pulled out my phone, went to my social media, and quickly typed out a post announcing my resignation from the company. Then, I began the process of deactivating my professional accounts. Seeing me actually go through with it seemed to finally break through her calculated composure. "Stop," she said, a note of panic creeping into her voice. "Forget it. As a long-standing employee, you can leave without deleting anything." A collective sigh of relief went through the room. Everyone relaxed, except for Leo, who looked thoroughly displeased. "Babe," he whined, "as the VP, don't I get a say in this?" Clara, who was usually so indulgent of his every whim, shot him a sharp, silencing look. She then quickly transferred $5,000 into my bank account. "The company appreciates its founders," she said, her voice regaining its formal, business-like tone. "You'll get everything you're owed, but these things take time. We'll settle your severance package in 7 days. For now, just take a break." She was operating under the assumption that I was still ignorant of her scheme. She believed that in a week, she could simply claim her memory had returned, offer a tearful apology, and we would make up, just as we always had. She hadn't factored in the one critical project that was now a ticking time bomb, due in exactly 7 days. It was a multi-million-dollar contract, and missing the deadline would trigger penalty clauses worth a fortune. In the past, I would have swallowed my pride and suffered in silence for the sake of the company we built. But I was done. I wanted nothing more to do with the company, or with her. As I prepared to walk out for the last time, her hand reached out, a force of old habit, to straighten my tie. She stopped herself awkwardly, her hand hovering in the air for a moment before dropping to her side. I glanced down at my phone, saw the notification for the money transfer, and immediately refunded it. Then, I went into my contacts and systematically erased all the pet names and affectionate emojis I had for her. When I was finished, I looked up and met her eyes. "Clara," I said calmly, "let's get a divorce." She was visibly stunned, the word catching in her throat. "Divorce? Why?" she blurted out, her amnesiac persona momentarily forgotten. Realizing her slip, she quickly corrected herself. Divorce? What a joke! Leo is my husband, not you. Watching her clumsy, unconvincing performance, I found I didn't even have the energy to feel angry anymore. I couldn't be bothered to call her out on the lie or waste my breath arguing. Instead, I decided to play along with her ridiculous charade. You're right, I said, a faint, humorless smile on my lips. It was me who tricked you into getting the marriage certificate all those years ago. Let's just go and undo it now. Leo's face lit up with undisguised glee. It's about time, he exclaimed, practically bouncing on his feet. Let's do it. Clara, however, hesitated. A frown creased her forehead as she seemed to ignore the obvious holes in my story, trying instead to just brush the entire topic aside. Never mind, she said dismissively. This all feels a bit strange. I'll decide later. I was genuinely puzzled by her reaction. Didn't she want to be with Leo? I was offering her an easy way out, a clear path to be with the man she supposedly loved. Yet she seemed hesitant. In the past, I would have questioned her, would have pleaded and asked the heartbreaking question of whether she had ever loved me at all. But now, I simply couldn't bring myself to care about her motivations. I just wanted the divorce finalized as quickly as possible. I raised an eyebrow, a hint of teasing in my voice. You don't want a divorce? Is it because you can't bear to let me go? Leo's cheerful expression immediately soured. He tugged on Clara's sleeve like a petulant child. But honey, he whined, aren't I your most beloved husband? How could you be married to someone else? Caught between my pointed question and Leo's needy plea, Clara reluctantly agreed. The three of us made the surreal journey to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Just as we were about to step inside the building, she suddenly stopped, feigning a flash of memory. She gripped my hand tightly. This place, she said, her voice filled with manufactured wonder. It looks so familiar. I remember it now. On New Year's Eve, I stood in that long line with you, waiting to get our marriage certificate. She thought dredging up these supposedly happy memories would make me change my mind, that it would be enough to stop me from going through with the divorce. It was a tactic she had used successfully many times before, a way to win me back after she had pushed me too far. But this time was different. This time, I had not only overheard her faking her amnesia, but I had also heard her true, unfiltered thoughts about our marriage. What's so romantic about it? She had confided to Leo. I only chose to marry him on the last day of the year because I had made a promise. But spending a whole lifetime with someone I don't truly love, that wasn't what I wanted. I kept putting it off until the very last day, and then I just made up my mind. As long as I marry someone to build a life with, it's fine. He has good prospects and can be useful. He's a nice person, too. A suitable partner. Listening to her praise me with such cold, calculated pragmatism while I stood just outside her door had felt like having my heart carved out of my chest. All this time, I had believed we were in love. For her, it was just a strategic merger. It explained so much, like why she had always been so guarded with her finances and her power within the company once it became successful, never truly letting me have an equal share. She was always wary of me. I had been lost in that painful memory when Clara shook my hand, bringing me back to the present. Do you remember? She asked, her eyes searching mine for a sign of weakness. Being trapped in such a distrustful, one-sided marriage was utterly exhausting. Cutting my losses now was the only logical option. I shook my head, gently pulling my hand from her grasp. No, I said flatly. You must be having illusions from your head injury. Clara's hopeful smile froze on her face. Despite all her attempts to placate me, I remained unmoved. Remembering that she was still playing the part of a patient, she began to look frustrated, as if she felt bad for not being more forgiving of my perceived coldness. With a huff, she linked her arm through Leo's, intertwining their fingers in an exaggerated display. "You're right," she declared loudly. "It's all fake. My one and only husband is Leo. As soon as we're done in here, Leo and I are getting properly married." She then stomped into the building, a look of defiant joy on her face, as if she were there to get married, not divorced. I couldn't be bothered with her theatrics and simply followed her inside. We had barely registered at the counter before we were ushered into a small mediation room. Clara immediately made herself comfortable on Leo's lap. She took a bunch of grapes she had brought with her and began peeling them, feeding him one by one with a coy smile. She clearly thought this public display of affection would make me jealous. Instead, it only served to remind me of the old Clara, the one who was so cold and reserved in public that she refused to even hold my hand, claiming it was improper to be so touchy-feely. Now she was like a completely different person, so brazenly open that it was almost embarrassing to watch. Even the staff member assigned to mediate our case couldn't hide her discomfort. With my firm and unwavering stance, the divorce proceedings moved forward quickly. I maintained a cold, impassive expression throughout the entire process, which clearly irritated Clara and only drove her to complete the paperwork with more stubborn anger. Once the divorce certificate was in my hand, I let out a long, slow breath. A massive weight I hadn't even fully realized I was carrying had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I hailed a cab to go home. As I gave the driver my address, Leo stuck his head through the open window, his face contorted in a sneer. "Go home? You two are divorced. That's not your home anymore," he spat. "You'd better pack your things and get out now." Clara stood beside him, a smug smile playing on her lips. "That's right," she chimed in. "Get the outsider out so my hubby can finally move in." She wanted me out so she could install Leo in my place. No man with an ounce of self-respect would accept that, and the old me certainly wouldn't have. But the new me, the me from after the meeting, simply nodded with an air of complete indifference. "Okay," I said. "I'm moving." I booked a hotel from my phone in the cab. Once I got back to the house, our house, I started to pack my belongings. The situation had clearly spiraled far beyond what Clara had anticipated or could control. She started trying to soften her approach, pretending to regain fragments of her memory. She picked up our wedding photo from the mantelpiece. "Mark?" she said softly. "When did we take this picture?" Without even looking up from the suitcase I was filling, I replied dismissively, "It's a fake. I photoshopped it." That remark seemed to be the final straw for her. With a cry of fury, she snatched my suitcase and hurled its contents out the front door. Get out now!" she screamed, before slamming the door shut with a deafening bang. I just shook my head, silently went outside, and began picking up my scattered clothes from the lawn, shaking the dust from them before folding them neatly back into my bag. From inside the house, I could hear Leo's worried voice. "Sis, this is all my fault," he said. "Me insisting on becoming the VP. Seeing you get divorced because of it really hurts. Maybe I should go and explain things to Mark." Clara's voice was calm and reassuring as she comforted him. "It's not your fault, Leo. Mark is just being petty because of my illness. I'll spend these next 7 days with you, and we'll deal with him later. Mark is easy to get back. All it will take is the crook of my finger, and he'll come running back to me." I stepped into the elevator with my bags. She was wrong. This was truly the end. There would be no reconciliation. The days I spent apart from Clara were a relief. Life felt simpler, lighter. My phone, however, was constantly buzzing with messages from former colleagues, their texts growing more frantic as the week wore on. One afternoon, my phone rang with a call from the office. "Mark, you have to come back," my old department head said, his voice strained. "The project deadline is coming up fast." I was about to refuse when I heard a commotion in the background, the sound of the phone being snatched away. In an instant, Leo's angry voice was barking down the line. "Mark, you've already been fired, so stop meddling in company affairs," a colleague's furious voice shouted back at him. "Leo, what are you doing? Don't you realize that if this project fails, the company stands to lose a fortune?" Leo just shrugged it off. "Why panic? I've almost finished the draft myself. It'll be ready in a couple of days." The colleague's shocked voice rang out again. "That's nonsense. We can't trust your work. Besides, the client specifically requested Mark's design. This is fraud. Where's Clara? I need to talk to Clara." Leo's threatening voice returned. "My sister is sick. If any of you dare to spread rumors and upset her, don't be surprised if I have you all fired." As soon as he said that, the call ended abruptly. I could easily predict how things would play out at the office. With me gone as a precedent, no one would dare to challenge Leo or Clara directly. They would have to endure it. I shook my head, making a conscious decision to stop thinking about it, to completely detach myself from the company's fate. I had worked myself to the bone for that business for years. Now I finally had some time for myself. I caught up with old friends, and every day was filled with laughter, drinks, and a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in a long time. It was the perfect antidote to all my worries. On the 7th day, I was dressed in a sharp suit, holding a groom's boutonniere in my hand. I was on my way to my best friend's wedding. As I walked into the hotel, I sent him a quick text. "Found the boutonniere. It was left in the car. Bringing it to you now." Just as I hit send, I heard a familiar voice floating from a nearby banquet hall. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Clara and Leo's wedding." I turned my head and saw her. Clara, radiant in a white wedding dress, was holding Leo's arm as they greeted guests at the entrance to the hall. Outside the room, large, glossy photos of their engagement were displayed on an easel. Leo noticed me first. He smirked, then grabbed Clara's chin and theatrically kissed the corner of her lips. The crowd around them squealed with delight, and Clara shyly tucked herself into his arms. Then she looked up, and her eyes met mine. She froze. Realizing what was happening, she immediately straightened up, putting a noticeable distance between herself and Leo. Leo bit his lip, clearly displeased that her attention seemed to be shifting towards me. He must have mistaken me for someone crashing their wedding. Seeing the growing crowd of onlookers, he suddenly latched onto my arm and pleaded in a loud, dramatic voice. "Bro, I truly love Clara. Please let us be together. Don't become an obstacle in our happiness." Clara's eyebrows shot up, ready to defend him, but then her gaze fell on the boutonniere in my hand. Her eyes immediately turned red. She assumed I was there to get married to someone else. "Mark," she whispered, her voice cracking. "How could you marry someone else and hide it from me?" I knew she had misunderstood, but I felt no need to explain myself. I just replied coldly, "Clara, we are already divorced. Please have some self-respect." My words seemed to snap her out of her act. She dramatically mimicked someone regaining their memory, clutching her head for a moment before grabbing my hand. "Mark, why am I in a wedding dress?" she asked, her eyes wide with feigned confusion. "Are you here to marry me again?" She tried to take the boutonniere from my hand, intending to pin it on my lapel. I held her hand firmly, stopping her. "Stop pretending," I said, my voice flat. "I overheard your entire plan with Leo to fake your amnesia." Facing my cold, unwavering stare, Clara knew there was no point in continuing the charade. She dropped the act, her expression shifting to a pout. "I only did it because you were so biased against Leo," she snapped. "You were constantly oppressing him. I had no other choice. You have no idea how well he has managed the company while you were away." I let out a short, sarcastic laugh. "Managed it well, or covered things up well? Do you have any idea that the project deadline is today?" Clara froze, turning to look at Leo for reassurance. He just smiled confidently. "Don't worry, sis. I've arranged everything. A small matter like this doesn't need your concern." He then shot a provocative glance in my direction. "Mark, didn't you hear? I submitted the design days ago. The client is already in mass production. Sorry to disappoint you with my excellence." Hearing this, Clara nodded, satisfied. She was about to say something when her phone began to ring. Smiling, she waved it at me. "See, that's the client calling now, probably to praise Leo for his incredible work. You really ought to reevaluate yourself and apologize to him." Beaming with pleasure, she answered the call and put it on speakerphone for everyone to hear. The moment she did, an angry voice erupted from the speaker. "You idiots! We wanted Mark's design, but you submitted some intern's junk and tried to pass it off as his. This is a severe breach of contract. You've cost us a fortune. Prepare for the billion-dollar penalty and a lawsuit. If you can't pay, prepare for jail." Clara was stunned into silence by the furious tirade. How could this be?" she stammered. "We've never had issues in all our previous collaborations." Before she could say another word, the client terminated the call. Until now, I had always been the one to handle these high-stakes client relationships, leaving her largely uninvolved in the details. Now, having just sung Leo's praises, she was faced with the reality that he had caused a catastrophic failure. She was too proud to ask me for help, so she just frowned and turned on him. "What happened? Didn't you say it was all sorted?" Leo's face turned just as unpleasant as hers. "That client is shameless," he grumbled. "After all the effort I put in, how could he just dismiss my work like that? It's just a minor project. Who cares?" Clara was infuriated by his cavalier attitude. "That's $1 billion in penalties. This is a small company. We're nowhere near capable of paying an amount like that. On top of that, this incident completely tarnishes the company's reputation. It will be impossible to secure future projects." Even as she reprimanded him, Leo remained indifferent. "So what? A measly billion, just give it to him." His dismissive tone made it sound like the penalty was a trivial sum. It was understandable, in a way. It was the company's money, not his, and Clara's history of coddling him meant he would face no personal consequences. Naturally, he couldn't care less. Even Clara couldn't tolerate his outrageous remark. She finally seemed to regret her foolish decision to make him vice president. She had only intended for it to be a trial run for a week, a little game to satisfy him, never anticipating it would lead to such chaos. His complete lack of management skills had completely altered her fate. Leo was still muttering curses about the client, but Clara finally cut him off. "Shut up! Didn't I tell you that you have to be meticulous and serious when it comes to the company? How could you just upload your own drafts? You're just an intern." Leo pouted, clearly annoyed. "I'm the VP. If I don't even have the rights of a VP, then what's the point? And come on, sis. So what if I messed up one project? It's not the first time. Why are you being so fierce about it?" He seemed genuinely upset, and in his frustration he rambled on about a number of other projects he had botched in the past. Listening to him inadvertently cleared up a mystery for me. There was a project a year ago that I had personally supervised, but by the time the final draft reached the client, it had been completely changed. Clara had blamed me, chewing me out for weeks. I had checked the files over and over, certain that there were no issues when I submitted them. It turned out Leo had accidentally deleted the final source file when he was submitting it. Too afraid to ask for another copy, he took it upon himself to upload an old, unedited version instead. The client was furious, complaining that none of their requested changes had been made, and immediately called Clara to demand an explanation. At the time, Clara had wanted to fire one of my junior interns to take the blame, but I refused to allow it. In the end, as the supervisor, I had to take full responsibility. It was my department, so it was my failure. I accepted the punishment, a demotion, and a pay cut. To salvage the project and the relationship with the client, I had humbly apologized, endured countless angry meetings, and drank so much appeasing their executives that I ended up in the hospital 3 times. It had taken months to turn things around. And now I was finally finding out that it had been Leo's fault all along, and Clara had known. She had covered for him and deliberately thrown me under the bus, forcing me to clean up their mess. Clara hadn't noticed the dawning realization on my face. She chided Leo a bit more before turning back to me with a helpless expression. "Fine. Everyone knows your abilities aren't up to par," she said to Leo, before turning her focus to me. "Mark, you're more capable. I trust you can resolve this matter. No matter how difficult the project or how picky the client, you've always managed to pull through. I was wrong before. Leo really isn't on your level. It's my dear husband who is the best." I was about to refuse when a visibly jealous Leo cut in. "Sis, I'm not as bad as you're making me out to be." For once, Clara didn't coddle him. She sternly reprimanded him. "Enough with the excuses. Look at the mess we're in today because of you. We made you VP to let you play around and show off a bit. With your skills, you should really stay out of important work matters." Clara really laid into him. It was a rare sight to see her siding with me, but I felt no satisfaction. Her past praises for Leo had come from the heart. When she complimented me, it was always on the surface, a tool to manipulate me into doing what she wanted. I used to fall for her sweet words, but now that I saw the truth of our relationship, I found all her actions grating and annoying. When Clara again asked for my help, I simply raised my hand to stop her. "I've resigned," I said. "I'm not in a position to handle company matters." Clara looked unsettled and quickly added, "It was all just a misunderstanding. What Leo did was truly excessive. Henry apologized to Mark, and we can put this all behind us." Leo wasn't having it. "Why should I? I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I apologize?" he said, his expression defiant. Clara's voice turned cold. "Leo, don't forget who signs your paychecks. The company losing this much money doesn't benefit you either. Do you still want that BMW I promised you?" Under the threat of losing his fancy car, Leo reluctantly offered a half-hearted apology. "Sorry. Is that good enough for you?" Clara had always been incredibly generous with him, buying him luxury cars and expensive gifts. I remembered, back in the day, when I had scrimped and saved to buy a simple car for us to get around. She had nagged me for half a year. "Our finances have just gotten stable, and you spent 10 grand on a car? That's so wasteful. Why can't you just ride my old scooter? When I was starting out, I rode that scooter everywhere. Why can't you—" I remembered explaining for what felt like hours that I needed to present a professional image for business meetings, but she was never satisfied. She accused me of not wanting to spend money on her. Fed up, I took her to a jewelry store and bought her a gold necklace, which was the only thing that finally quieted her down. Looking back on it all now, it was painfully clear who she truly loved. I had been living in the dark for years, and it was only now that everything was finally clicking into place. I shook my head, refusing to dwell on the painful memories. Clara mistook the motion for a sign of forgiveness and thought she had won. Just as she attempted to pull me away from the wedding party, my friend, the actual groom, rushed over. "Mark, you've been taking forever with that corsage. You're going to make us late for the ceremony." Clara's face suddenly broke into a relieved smile. "Oh, so you're not marrying someone else. Why didn't you just tell me? I see you were just trying to make me jealous. All right, let's not fight anymore. Let's go deal with this company crisis first, okay?" I handed the boutonniere to my friend and shook off Clara's hand. "I'm going to a wedding," I said firmly. "You made your bed. Now you can lie in it." Clara was not pleased. She raised her chin and snapped at me. "Is your friend's wedding more important than the company? Leo and I have both apologized. How long are you going to drag this out?" She sounded so self-righteous, as if she were the victim. If it weren't for her enabling Leo's incompetence, none of this would have ever happened. I ignored her and started chatting with my friend. Annoyed that we weren't paying him any attention, Leo snapped, "Mark, today isn't over. I'm still your boss." "Is this how you treat your superior?" Helen saw he was about to lose his temper completely and scolded him under her breath. Then, remembering she needed my help, her tone softened again. "Fine," she said. "I'll go with you to the wedding first. Once everything is sorted out there, we'll deal with the project." As she spoke, she started to unbutton her wedding dress. I just raised an eyebrow at her. I was so tired of her relentless pestering. "How many times do I have to tell you? Why can't you get it through your head? Clara, we are divorced. I also quit my job. So in the future, don't bother me with anything related to you or the company." People around us were starting to stare, giving her odd looks, which made her visibly uncomfortable. She looked at me awkwardly. "It's all just jokes," she stammered. "Why are you taking it so seriously?" I chuckled, without any humor. "You have Leo living at your place? Is that part of the joke, too?" Clara suddenly looked a bit guilty. "It's just an act," she said before elbowing Leo. He immediately caught on. "Yeah, just an act," he said. "I've been staying in the guest room. If you really can't stand me being there, I'll leave." He looked at me challengingly. Ever since he had moved in, he had been sending me video messages, trying to get under my skin, showing off how well Clara was taking care of him, making him a different breakfast every single day. Clara had even blocked me on social media before posting about her newfound love for cooking. "Cooking for the one you love is true happiness," her caption read. It was clear I was not the one she loved. In all our years together, I had done all the chores and cooking. She had never lifted a finger. I shook my head. "No need. You're her husband now. It's perfectly reasonable for you to stay there." Leo raised an eyebrow. "I'm trying to be humble here. Why are you being such a jerk? And come on, you can insult me all you want, but how can you not trust your wife after all these years?" I replied indifferently. "Don't say that. I never faked amnesia and brought another man into our home. It's better to just leave things as they are." Clara looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears of disappointment. "Mark, you were never like this before." It seemed she still didn't get it. I had treated her well and compromised constantly out of love. But now, that love was gone. I followed my friends into the private room for the wedding, leaving her and Leo standing there. At the wedding, I was busy helping out, and my friend, sensing my mood, didn't ask about what had happened earlier. After the reception was over, I finally had a chance to check my phone. It turned out the news about our company's project failure was already making headlines in our industry circles. Clara, unable to contain the situation, was in a full-blown crisis, trying to calm down clients and deal with angry shareholders simultaneously. During this time, she had sent me a barrage of texts, all begging for my help. I had refused every single one. Her last message was dripping with frustration. "Mark, I'm asking you to step in and save face. Don't be so ungrateful." I promptly deleted the message and blocked her number, not wanting to bother with her anymore. The situation exploded, spreading beyond our industry and dominating the business headlines for days. The company's stock was in a freefall. It wasn't just Clara anymore. The company's other shareholders were getting extremely restless. A few days later, Clara, armed with expensive gifts, brought the company's key staff members to find me. They cornered me in the lobby of my hotel. My old colleagues took turns trying to reason with me. "Mark, couples argue. It's normal. Clara knows she was wrong. You should forgive her. The company really, really needs your help right now." Another one added, "Yeah, you don't want to see the company you built from the ground up just go under, do you?" Seeing my old friends trying so hard to persuade me, I asked a simple question. Do all of you now know that Clara's amnesia was fake? The group went completely silent. I looked from face to face and saw clearly that their eyes held no surprise, only regret and guilt. I leaned back against the reception desk and laughed out loud. It turned out it wasn't just Clara who had betrayed me. Even my longtime colleagues, people I considered friends, had hidden the truth from me. They were only coming to me now because they had no other choice. If the company hadn't been on the brink of total collapse, they wouldn't be here, begging me like this. They all took turns trying to reason with me on Clara's behalf. Even Clara herself was trying to be low-key and please me. I pushed the gift basket she had brought far away from me. "You guys are pretty capable," I said. "You can solve it yourselves." Seeing that I was still unmoved, Clara's face turned cold. "Mark, what's the point in ruining the company?" she said, her voice sharp. It was hilarious. I was just refusing to step in and help, and yet she was blaming the company's downfall on me. I shook my head. "Clara, it doesn't benefit me if the company does well. I was on a fixed salary anyway. Not only that, but Clara had also consistently withheld my performance bonuses, saying that since I was her husband, there was no need to waste company money on me. She would just reward me with a home-cooked meal later, a promise she rarely kept. And yet, Leo, who did absolutely nothing of value, received bonuses under various pretenses. Clara raised an eyebrow, telling me not to be so capricious. She still believed that I couldn't truly let go of the company I had co-founded. But I wasn't that passionate, idealistic young man anymore. I had become practical, just like her. I picked up my luggage and pulled a document from the side pocket, holding it up for her to see. "I've already agreed to work for this company," I said. "Once my visa is sorted, I'm leaving. You can all stop hoping." After leaving the company, I had received a job offer from a major firm abroad. They had been trying to poach me for a while, and I had always been tempted. But back then, I thought my home was here, with Clara. I couldn't just leave everything behind, but now my home was gone, and my career of many years had vanished overnight. So I didn't hesitate. I accepted their offer. Seeing the official job offer, everyone froze. Clara couldn't believe I was so determined, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "Mark, you're just trying to scare me, right? Didn't you promise you would never leave me?" Why should I hold on to my promises when she had never kept a single one of hers? Seeing that they couldn't persuade me, everyone looked dejected. I stood up to say my final goodbyes. Just then, Henry rushed out of nowhere and threw a punch at me. I reacted instantly, returning the blow. As we were on the verge of a full-blown fight, everyone hurried to intervene, pulling us apart. Henry's eyes were brimming with tears as he shouted, "Mark, you're such a jerk! You know that if this blows up, not only will Sis have to pay compensation, but she might also go to jail. You're always claiming that you love her the most, yet you're just leaving the country when she needs you the most. That's shameless." The one who had actually caused this entire mess was Leo himself. How did he have the nerve to blame me? My coworkers must have thought his words were offensive, because they all started chiming in, trying to explain the situation to me in more detail. That's when I found out the full extent of the damage. Over the past 7 days, Leo had been recklessly spending the company's money. Now, with the billion-dollar compensation debt that they couldn't possibly pay back, other partners were canceling their contracts and suing the company for damages as well. Clara was already entangled in multiple lawsuits. If she couldn't pay up, she was indeed headed for jail. So that's why it had blown up so spectacularly. No wonder she was panicking. But what did any of that have to do with me? I had no interest in getting involved. When Clara heard what Leo said about her going to jail, she looked away, wiping tears from her eyes. Seeing the situation change, the other colleagues started to plead again. "Yeah, Clara might have been a bit mischievous, but she and Leo are completely innocent. Nothing happened between them. So why not just pretend it didn't happen? One said. Right, another added. We've all been through things like this. Life needs a bit of haze. Don't take things so seriously. After all, you were married once. No matter what, you can't just watch her lose everything and end up in jail, can you? Looking at their disgusting, pleading faces, I felt like even arguing with them would be beneath me. If this had happened to their own partners, they probably wouldn't be so calm and philosophical. They would have already grabbed a knife. I shook my head, my expression still indifferent. Clara gritted her teeth and softly pleaded with me. I promise this is the last time. If you can save me this one time, I promise I'll come back to the family. If you're not happy, I'll fire Leo right now. I won't have anything to do with him anymore. Leo, his eyes red, said nothing more, but I still refused to turn back. No need, I said. You should continue to be with him. Goodbye, everyone. Or rather, never see you again. Ignoring Clara's heartbroken cries, I walked straight out of the hotel, hailed a cab to the airport, and caught my flight. As soon as I got settled in my new apartment abroad, I saw a message from an old colleague. The company had gone bankrupt. Clara, unable to pay back the money, had all of her assets frozen by the court and had been sentenced to jail. The cash and valuable items that Leo had received from Clara over the years were all reclaimed by the authorities to help clear the company's massive debt. I quietly switched off my phone, got out of bed, and got ready for work. A new day had begun.